Most creators think their channel is just content. It is actually a business, and most of them have no idea what it is worth. I'm sitting down with Sebastian Wolf, co-founder of Quartermast, an M&A advisory firm that helps creator economy businesses sell. He has worked in TV production, talent management, and tech acquisition across Europe and the US. And now he helps creators turn their channels into something buyers actually want. He's going to break down how creator businesses get valued, what kills deals, and what you should be building right now if you ever want to sell. Let's get into it. First and foremost, I just want to thank you again for joining us. And also, I feel like I like when actually our guests introduce themselves to us instead of just me doing like some sort of an overview of who they are. And you've had like this interesting career that we've talked about right now. And like, I just want to know more about you, like a brief overview of what you do, who you are, because I've seen that you've had a career spanning TV production, talent management, app development, and now M&A advisory. And what's the common thread across those worlds?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for having me. It's really cool to be on your show. In terms of my background, I always joke to people I never dropped out of college because I never dropped in. I basically started my career in entertainment in the Netherlands as an on-screen television actor when I was 18 years old. I looked like I was 12 years old, so that was my benefit at that time. I was in a show which was kind of like the Dutch version of the Degrassi, did it for a couple of years, and that really opened up doors for me to understand the whole entertainment business. And instead of working in front of the screens, I was much more interested in working behind the scenes. So I started working at the Dutch public broadcaster, did that for a couple of years. I noticed that TV was slowly dying. So I started to work on projects that were app-enabled activations that were basically alongside television productions or film productions, just to activate online audiences. And what was kind of interesting, what I noticed during these app developments, we had actors speaking into the camera, just like the traditional vlogs back in the days, where the fan bases loved it. So I was much more interested in working behind the scenes. So I started working at the Dutch public broadcasting. I did television production for a couple of years, but then I started to move into the app development space or online activations, where we noticed that there was an interest from the audience to hear stories directly from the actors through vlogging style content. And that was the first time I was actually exposed to sort of like creator economy, influencer marketing type of content back in the day. And I mean, this was even before, YouTube blew up and all of that. And that was the moment that I also noticed in Los Angeles, the trend of influencer marketing growing rapidly, the creator economy starting to develop. So I joined this talent agency in Amsterdam called A Million Faces. They represent traditional talent on television and films. And we basically started to build a digital department where we started working with vloggers and bloggers, even talent on Vine during those days. I mean, I know Vine is RAP right now, but at that time, that was still a big thing. To build their careers online, but also build their careers on mainstream television. Did it for a couple of years, but my dream was really to move to the United States. So in 2017, I moved to California, joined a startup called Paladin Software, led the global business development of that company until we were acquired ourselves by a company called Brandwatch. So all of that experience led me into now helping founders in the creator economy to sell their business. So just to wrap it up, if you ask me what is like the concept thread, it's basically one giant adventure of like going from screens, going in the background, working TV production, to digital, to influencer marketing, to technology, and now helping people to sell their own business.
I think it's really interesting what you're saying, because to me, it seems like you've seen this shift of traditional media to social media being in a way mainstream. So I really like that. And I like that you have a point of view that can give us like an overall idea of what it was like before it. So
I hope so.
yeah. That's really interesting.
And it's really funny because most people in the creator economy, there is no degree in the creator economy or a degree in influencer marketing. So everybody in this space has a very unique story, how they actually ended up in what they're doing today.
Awesome. And then how did this bring you to Quartermast? Because this is M&A. It's completely different. It's behind the cameras. And how did you find out about M&A first and foremost? And how would you describe what the firm actually does for creators and digital media companies?
I started to understand more about M&A back during my time at Paladin Software, where I was doing global business development, but as we were scaling our startup company, acquired a smaller business in Germany at that time, just to acquire basically a little bit of their technology, but mostly their clientele to expand our business. To also the following year sell Paladin ourselves basically to Brandwatch. So even though I was not the CEO or the founder of that business, I was one of the key revenue drivers of the business. So I was in every step of those considerations of like understanding how does this process work, what's involved, what is important for the team, et cetera, et cetera. And it was really something that I loved from James, who was the CEO at that time and currently my partner at Quartermast, where this was really a decision that we all made together as a team. Do we want to get acquired, and what are things that are important to us? So that was the first time I actually got exposed to mergers and acquisitions. And it was basically after we got acquired that James was already advising a few of his friends in the creator economy space for them to understand what are the challenges when you try to sell your business? What are things you have to think about? How do you negotiate a good deal for yourself and all of that? So he was already advising on the side, and he pulled me in on a few of the projects because he got very busy. And I actually decided that I really like to help founders. So that's kind of how I rolled into it.
Is that what brought you to co-write the Quartermass Creator Economy M&A Blueprint? And who is it really for when you guys were creating it?
Yeah, well, we write several papers basically that is helpful for anybody in the creator economy. So we do reports on trends, about valuations, changes we see in the market. But one thing that I've found very interesting is to also inspire creator economy founders as well as creators to start thinking for themselves and thinking about their own business of like, what do I want to do next? How do I want to market myself? How do I become ready to sell my business when we get to that point? So that was really the reason. And it's basically designed for everybody that is remotely interested in selling their business maybe in the coming 1, 2, 3 years and that is active in the creator economy.
Yeah, and also it's a market that's growing exponentially, right? So, from what I've seen, your report found a 73% year-over-year increase in creator M&A deals in 2025. Is it still growing now in 2026? What's going on? And in a way, I just want to know, why are so many more creator businesses being bought and compared to last year, especially?
Yeah, obviously we are bullish on creator economy M&A. We see a lot of deals happening, and actually as of the start of 2026, we have seen a lot of announcements happening. So according to us, yes, it's still booming. The reason for it is, I mean, capital finally understands creators as a cash flowing media business and not just as like a side project, which it used to be. How do I say that? For my entire career being in the creator economy, like, and that's over 12 years by now, I've always had to defend the creator economy not being just a simple trend, but actually the form of new media. And now we're finally seeing this developing faster than ever. And especially since the years after 2020, it just accelerated drastically. So that's number one. And at the same time, creator forward businesses or creators themselves have been in the space for a while now. It's not super young anymore as it used to be. Like, they have built businesses over the last 5, 7, or even 10 years. And that's usually the point that you start to think in an exit modus. Like, and now that's happening while buyers are hunting for IP and audiences. I think that's like the perfect combination for the perfect storm for more increase of M&A transactions.
And who would you say are the buyers entering this space?
We see strategic buyers like traditional media groups, gaming companies, consumer brands, but also private equity firms, roll-up opportunities. And besides that, by the way, also founders of other creator businesses, they also become acquirers themselves now that they are becoming larger businesses as well. So yeah, the strategy can vary from new media to platform diversification to demographic growth, basically.
Yeah. And valuations reportedly range from 5 times to 8 times EBITDA. How do you actually arrive at those numbers for a creator business?
Yeah, I mean, the multiples can vary. It can vary per region. It can vary, based on the revenue mix, on margins, on repeatability. It can be on how dependent a business is on one person, or maybe on the entire platform, or like on an entire team. What we see is we do see different ranges of EBITDA multiples. So, for example, we see talent managements going for roughly 4 to 8 times EBITDA, as where we see media businesses. So that could be, for example, a creator business. We can see that all the way from like 7 to 16 times EBITDA. So that's like way higher, of course. And then if you think about, for example, software like SaaS businesses, they traditionally trade on annual returning revenue instead of EBITDA. So that's kind of interesting as well. So then you get a total different metric and a total different number, which is can be anywhere between the 3 and 10x.
Yeah. When it comes to evaluating what you're selling, like what needs to be true about a creator's business before investors take them seriously? Like what does a creator need to look like before a serious buyer come knocking?
Yeah, first of all, they need to ensure that the business is something that still works, even if the creator decides to step back. So we see that faceless channels are much easier to sell, for example. Much easier to sell than the channels that are heavily relying on the creator's personality. So in case, Vitor, like if you're building like this whole empire with this podcast that you're building, and at some point you want to sell your podcast and all the viewers and everything that's part of it, but you decide to step out, you most likely lose a ton of your subscribers because people follow you because of you. So that's a thing to really consider. Like, how do I create my brand? It's a thing to think about. How do you evaluate your brand to make sure that it's going to be sustainable even when you decide to not be part of your brand anymore or to work behind the scenes? So it's easier also to sell channels that might not be driven by personality, but are just voiceovers, or that's like with text, or where there's like a group of presenters, or where there's a variety of people. So like there's different ways to go about it. But if as long as it's not personality driven by one person, I think that's very important. But besides that, just make sure that the boring stuff is also accurate, right? Clean financials, diversified revenue, year-over-year growth, be brand safe. There's so much to think about, really.
Actually, before this interview, I actually imagined it was the opposite. I didn't know the value of a faceless channel, so it's really interesting to know this because my next question to you is actually what are the most common deal killers? And in my mind, it would be a faceless channel. So it's really interesting to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends in the end of like what the content is and how stable the viewership is and the engagements and all the revenue that comes in. In the end, every business is a very boring P&L sheet for most people, for most buyers. We just have to think about it in a strategic way where if a buyer is fearful that you would step aside, then that could jeopardize the deal. That's kind of like how we have to think about. But I mean, other deal killers, I would say, like, is poor revenue concentration, undocumented finances, inconsistency in terms of like delivering results. The biggest deal killer, by the way, even if a client is interested in you and you're going through the due diligence process, the biggest deal killer is always time. Time kills all deals. With time, doubt can arise. With time, things can change. You don't know if economic recession happens in 2 weeks' time, right? Like that could be a deal killer, for example. So when we work with our clients, we always make sure to work as fast as we can to keep the momentum up, to avoid any delays on our side.
What would you say matters more than just subscribers or followers when it comes to that?
I mean, it really depends on your type of business, right? But I think retention is always important.
Oh, yeah.
Engagement is always important, and that goes for creators that want to retain their viewership, that want to get engagement from their viewers. Like that's very important, but it also counts for software companies. You want to retain your users, and you want to make sure that they are self-engaged, that they actually use your platform, right? So the retention is very important. Think about the gross margins, like how much money do you actually make per user or per viewer or per campaign, and repeated customers. That is in the end so important to sell your business, because that predicts the future and stabilizes deals in the future. If you're a content creator and editing is eating your week, pay attention. VidPros is a professional video editing service built exclusively for creators. Not a random freelancer, not an AI tool, a dedicated human editor assigned to your channel who learns your style, your voice, and your vision from day one. Here's how it works. You film, you upload your raw footage to our portal, and your editor handles everything from there. Captions, color grading, sound design, transitions, facts, all matching your brand. You get notified when your video is ready. Send revision notes directly to your editor, and you post. Clean, simple, and repeatable every week. The results speak for themselves. Our creators grow from 4 videos a month to over 17. We have helped channels grow from 100,000 subscribers to 600,000 subscribers, with some seeing a 200% increase in uploads. When you stop spending 15 hours editing every single video, you get that time back to film more and actually grow. Pricing is simple. Start with a $100 trial for 1 full week. You choose 10 short form videos or 1 long form video, professionally edited with fast turnaround. After your trial, the full service is $1,000 a month. Dedicated editor, unlimited revisions, direct communication, and consistent delivery every week. Go to vidpros.com and start your $100 trial today. Stop editing and start growing. If like a creator makes money from like multiple sources instead of just AdSense, does that increase their value, would you say? Oh, massively. Yes. Yeah. That can be the difference between 4x and a 7x, for example, right? Buyers pay for predictability, basically. You can sometimes negotiate higher prices or maybe higher earnouts if you feel bullish about the future after acquisition. But if you have a diversified income stream, so not just purely on viewership range or whatnot, but like by having your own products or doing affiliate marketing or do branded content partnerships, that really increases your value a lot.
Also, I imagine like maybe owning their email list or customer data instead of just relying on the platforms. Would you say that's helpful?
Yeah, it's so funny. Even when I was managing talent about 10 years ago, I already told a few of my talents, hey, start your own email list. I know it sounds boring, but those email lists are super valuable because you own the data yourself. Everything on the social media platforms is owned by the social media platforms. So, first party data just really de-risks any business.
Would you say that's the overlooked lever? Because I had this question like following the last one, but I feel like you're answering both together, which I really like. Because my next question would be, what's one overlooked lever that consistently increases value? Would you say it's the email list and the data collecting?
Could be. I mean, it could really help to increase your value. I think a way to go about it as well is to make sure that you diversify across platforms. Don't be dependent on just YouTube or just Snap or whatsoever. Because the platforms, they decide what to do algorithm-wise, they decide to do what to do growth-wise, policy-wise as well. So I think that is a way to go about it. But if you can own any data yourself through like email lists or memberships or even other businesses that can help you own your data, it can really help you accelerate the value. I mean, there's a few companies that can help you own your data instead of just leasing it via Instagram and all the social media platforms. An example is a company called TopFan. I really like those guys. They really build a cool product that allows you to have everything in-house and actually own your own data, whether you sell products or you have engagements or anything like that.
That's very interesting, actually. What's like the structural decision that you feel like should creators make early on if they're thinking about doing some sort of M&A in the future?
As a creator, make sure that you think about your platform, your profile, your content, treat it as a business. That is the best advice I can give. And that adds everything, right? Compliance, financials, consistency, all of that. If you treat it as a business and you are serious about building your empire, like that will set you up for success on the long term.
How important would you say are off-platform assets?
Off-platform assets can be super valuable. It really depends what fits in your niche, of course. What we see is some creators are creating because they love to create, and then they do things off-platform. But we also see a lot of people that are not on the platforms, but use social media for reach. So it really depends. I mean, it really goes hand in hand. But in the end, I think it's really important that it just fits whatever you do online. Like, it has to be authentic. I know creators that release entire merchandise lines, or creators that do fan days or anything like that, and that can be a real revenue driver as long as it just fits your content.
What advice you'd give to those creators bringing in their first partner or operator?
If you are building your creator business and you start to grow and you need support, make sure that you hire team members that you first of all fully trust, and maybe use third-party services to begin with. I mean, there are companies out there that are specialized in doing finances for creator forward businesses or anything like that. Maybe that is a better approach to start off with before you actually hire somebody full-time. So that's a way to go about it. But if you hire somebody full-time or have like an operator in the business, make sure that you trust that person has a good track record, and make sure you can pay that person as well before anything else. Because, well, it's important, but sometimes creators decide like, oh, you know what, we'll just give you an equity stake into the business, which can sound good at first glance, but what if your business explodes and really becomes big and you're selling it? Then you suddenly own a big chunk of the proceeds as well to that operator or the business partner that you have. So don't think lightly about who you do business with, because in the end, especially if it's about your own business and you have partnerships, it's like a marriage.
When it comes to like the global creator economy, what are the structural differences between like the US, Europe, and the Asian market?
Yeah, I actually love that question. So the US really optimizes for scale, right? There's a huge English speaking market that they can reach in both the US and in Canada, even on the global scale. And it's like one melting pot of a culture in the United States that we can all agree on. So the market is huge. Now, if you look to Europe, Europe's economy is way more fragmented. Businesses are growing in their own countries, their own languages, their own cultures. So they tap into their own culture. So all the businesses are focused on their own regions rather than the scalability that you see in the United States. And then third, for APAC, and it speaks more about Asia, I see that as a place for speed and experimentation. There's less guardrails on the side for innovation, and we see that with platforms such as ByteDance and TikTok, of course, like really increasing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries in growing the space, and that trend we really see coming from Asia right now.
When it comes to like monetization models, is there any sort of any sort of model that abroad the US hasn't caught onto? that it's completely different that you've noticed?
I would say the US is catching up to it. That's really like live commerce, virtual gifting, platform integrated payments. I mean, we see that happening in APAC already. The US is already, it's also ramping up. I think Europe is even further behind on that. But I think that is where there's a ton of opportunity right now.
Yeah. Would you say like the language barrier could be a reason? The fact that the US market is very heavily English based, is that helpful?
Yeah, because you have a huge market that you can reach. I'm from the Netherlands, right? Small country. Like you can have an amazing product, but if you only market your product in English and your content creators are only, sorry, in Dutch, or in your content creators are only Dutch, your market is only going to be that big. So that's really why the United States has that big market and a big market opportunity.
What would you say is like the biggest missed opportunity in international creator markets?
Missed opportunity for international markets would be great for the global creator economy is to collaborate more on a international and a global scale. And we see that right now in M&A, thankfully, where companies are targeting new demographics that they haven't been active before, and they are doing that by pursuing M&A deals. But I see a ton of opportunity, for example, between the United States and Europe to do more consolidation and growing together into building really cool, large creator economy for businesses. And by that, we can build really new empires in the space, like the previous Warner Brothers and Universals and all of that, like back in the film days and television days. We can do the same thing as long as we're all decide to collaborate. I think that's really a big opportunity. And that opportunity is something I did see during the 1 billion follower summit last January in Dubai. We saw a ton of operators and founders in the creator economy that are starting to open up to do more collaborations on a global scale. So I'm really excited about that.
That's actually really exciting, and I actually want to know more about this when it happens. I'm gonna keep looking at what you guys are up to, because
It will
this
be
is
a
something
slow burn, but we'll see it happening over time. Yeah.
I'm very interested. When it comes to like agencies and productions, why are agencies becoming acquisition targets?
Agencies are becoming acquisition targets because their recurring revenue businesses are sitting at the center of the cash flow for creators, basically. So buyers like predictable models, and an agency is typically a very predictable model because the margins are typically standardized at this moment.
Like, for example, for us, we're a video editing agency. How can an editing agency make itself attractive to buyers instead of just being seen as freelancers in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the things we have to think about, I mean, it's really just like any other business, like productize services, standardize your deliverables, reduce founder dependency. I think that's a very important one for everybody that tries to sell their business. In the end, buyers want systems. They want to have predictability and all of that. So I think that's a way how you can market yourself. And in the end, you can be super innovative as a business, which is really cool.
Interesting. Like,
But I think the
let's say you were to,
predictability is just important for prospective buyers because they want to know, like, hey, is this business going to be stable? So that's why I always believe like diversification on platforms is always going to be important. That's why sales in businesses like that are active in YouTube and are active on Instagram, they're typically successful because it's reliable. We understand the product. TikTok 2-3 years ago was very misunderstood, especially by traditional buyers. And right now we see that it's becoming better understood. So that's an exciting trend we see. So I think we're going to see more TikTok based acquisitions in the creator economy. And that's the same thing for like Snap. Snap can be super interesting, but sometimes there's also uncertainty about Snap as well. So how do you go about those challenges? So that's kind of like things to consider as you market yourself.
yeah, like let's say you're actually having a conversation with a client who has 1 million subscribers, but they have no business structure. What are the first 3 moves that you guys take on to make like a successful deal out of it?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's all the seller's responsibility, right? To form their business and all of that, I mean, form a proper entity first, clean up revenue streams, make sure that there's clear distribution, make sure that your finances are up to date. So if there's a 1 million subscriber creator that has no structure at all and they basically want to set themselves up for success in the future, you got some cleaning up to do from the last couple of years because people want to know your history of the last 3 years at minimum. So yeah, you can't start early enough.
That's complicated, I would say, for a lot of creators.
That is complicated. That's why it's important to think about your content and your distribution as really as a business. But there are advisors out there that can really help, that have that expertise. There are accounting services that are specialized in the creator economy, etc. So I would highly recommend people to start working with those type of firms just to get started with, so that they have at least some foundation, and then as they grow and they scale and they can start hiring people, like then you can really build out your empire a little bit further, because it would be too daunting for any creator to have a whole team behind them until they actually make significant revenue and money.
Yeah. Where do you think this industry is heading? Like maybe like let's say in the next 5 years, where is it headed?
Creators are the new mini media companies. We already see that with the bigger creators out there, like Mr. Beast is obviously a prime example of that. But yeah, they are new media businesses and typically personality driven, which, just to confirm, even though that can be challenging to sell your business, but it is the best and fastest way to grow your business, of course, because people love personality. So that's kind of like the crux sometimes. But, build your business. Creators will have businesses that have CFOs, operators, they have exit plans, all of that, investors. That's what I see happening in the coming years.
Do you think like maybe in 5 years from now, this could be like the new mainstream? Because it seems like it's going in that direction, doesn't it?
I already say it's pretty mainstream as of this moment. Yeah. Sometimes I hear people say, yeah, this is the future. And I think we already live in the future.
Interesting. I love that. And I really want to end on that because that's a really powerful statement. Thank you so much. If you have anything you'd like to promote or any final advice that you want to give the audience, please let us know. Any creator who's watching, who's interested about this.
Yeah, no, one thing that I would like to close off with is, at Quartermass, we are not the typical financial bankers that are focusing on just the revenue and the EBITDAs. Even though it's very important, we think strategy is very important, and we are rooting for the creator economy to grow. So if you ever think about selling your business at some point, even in the future, happy to always take a look at what you have today, give you a few tips or tricks just to set you up for future success. And whether you are a creator or a creator-forward business, there is usually a pretty clear path to an exit as long as you build a nice and sustainable business.
Honestly, that's amazing. Thank you so much for all your advice. I've learned so much throughout this call. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this. Creators are the new media companies. That is not the future. That is right now. If this opened your eyes to what your channel could actually be worth, subscribe, drop a comment, and come back next week for another conversation like this one. See you. Bye.